Hey everybody, before we get into this week's episode, this is Dante from the 580 Show. I just want to remind everybody that we are doing a strongman contest giveaway. All details are on the YouTube page. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel, check it out, give it a like, a comment, and everything. All of the above. Just quick shout out that we are still doing the giveaway. Once we hit 700 subscribers, we will pick somebody for the winnings. So if you're interested and have no idea what we're talking about, go check out our YouTube channel at 580 Barbell on YouTube and go give it a listen. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
All right. Now joining the show, episode 143, professional strongman Tyler Young.
What's up, man? How's it going? It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah. So just a little introduction. You're a two-time Clash finalist, a Pro 105 strongman by way of, I believe, 2021 nationals, right?
Correct.
It was actually my first national, so I remember getting to watch you as a competitor and also kind of just getting to see you get your pro card. And you're the owner of Grade 8 Performance, which you're actually in right now. I can see in the background.
Correct.
So it's a gym, but it's also seems like you've kind of parlayed that into coaching and stuff like that as well. So when did Grade 8 become when did it come to fruition?
It would have been December of 2019 into January of 2020. Just a wild little vision I had, if you will. I've talked about it on some other podcasts, kind of how it kind of materialized. But I had no idea that it was going to, lead to all of this. Like, it's kind of felt like the wind's been at my back the whole time. So I've just kept growing and, picked up athletes here and there. I remember being totally overwhelmed with like 10 athletes. Like I was like, there's no way I can do more than that. And then that number changed to 20 and then 30 and then 40.
Wow.
I keep in the 50s right now and it's manageable. You know what I mean? So it's just grown. I'm happy. Most of the time for most athletes, I'm able to, give back and parlay some of that knowledge, if you will, because the sport is just rampant with, people posing as coaches right now. And it's just really frustrating from where I'm sitting. And that was kind of, why I wanted to do it to begin with. I was seeing a lot of, bad knowledge. The first guy that I started training with, to his credit, got me in the sport. But, every Saturday we would go, literally every Saturday we would max out on log. We would do deadlifts for failure. We would do 3 or 4 set. Like he just put on 405. He's like, pull it as many times as you could. So we would do log, deadlift, and we weren't pulling with straps at the time. We were pulling over under, and then we would go outside and we would flip tires until we couldn't stand up anymore. Like that was the only things that we did, and we stayed hurt, we stayed injured, and we never won anything of any substance. And I got to looking around the sport, and I saw a lot of like good old boy coaches like that, and I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, like a better system. So that's kind of why
it's so funny to look back at like old training stuff, like and just see like how funny and silly and some of the stuff that we've done, I mean, some of it is kind of like that iron credit learning by doing it, like those 20-30 rep sets of a really, you know what I mean? That
for sure
now, but yeah, I know what you're saying. It's funny because when I own a gym in Pittsburgh. It's funny. We both probably picked the worst time statistically to open a gym. You said you tried it right at the end of 2020. I opened mine in the middle of 2020, obviously the pandemic, but that's really cool that you were able to weather the storm and,
I actually, if I remember my dates, I did America's Strongest Man at the end of September and I did nationals at the end of October, and I opened my gym. Like there was a month between the shows and I opened the gym in the 2 weeks,
wow,
like halfway through.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And you're coming off a torn bicep right now, right?
Indeed.
I can kind of see it in the picture a little bit. Deadlifting.
Yeah. So, even coaches need coaches too. You know what I mean? I would just a dumb mistake and I'm going to pay my taxes for it. I was working on getting a good OSG video together, working up. I had 675 on the bar, got into my suit, got in a great, I wear a Leviathan Ultra Pro a lot of times to pull in. And I knew that I had the suit in a good spot, but I couldn't get my straps where I wanted them. So I was like, well, I'll just pull over under. And if I had any, if I hadn't, I would like to think anyway, if the adrenaline hadn't been going, I would have been like, maybe I should, warm my biceps up or think about something before I pull over under for the first time in like 3 years. So my first foray back was at 675. And I pulled it. And the worst part about it is it was flying. Like, it was going to go. There's zero doubt. But, I got almost to the knee, felt it, and I just put it down. I just looked at the guys, and they're like, "What?" And I said, "I just tore my bicep." Like,
So what? So you said you were doing that for OSG. When did that happen? When
almost a month ago. It'll be a month ago tomorrow. But today I came in here, and with my spudding deadlift harness, I deadlifted 675 for a little bit of vindication. So
yeah, I saw that on Instagram. That's just kind of like a gotcha. Like, you can, you can still get the weight.
Yeah, I had to get it back, man.
What is it like pulling on one of those? Just out of curiosity, like, because I've seen people, in like, does it feel similar to a deadlift?
Yeah.
Does it really?
It's kind of strange. It's kind of almost like a standing leg press, which a deadlift theoretically should be anyway.
I guess so, yeah.
I think that when I come out of here on the other side, once I relearn how to tighten my lats and get my back in a good position, I think my pull is going to be stronger because of it. Most every time in my career where I've struggled periodically with deadlifts, it's because for some reason that switch flips from pushing to pulling. Like, you push the ground away, and sometimes even me, as experienced as I am, I'll rewatch my video and I'm like, oh, I'm not scooping the way I'm supposed to. So I think that long term it's going to help. It's going to be beneficial. Yeah. I think I liken it more. It almost feels like more. You know how much different like an 18-inch pull feels like from where you kind of start and you're able to really drive. It feels more like that, even though I've got the straps tightened down.
That actually clicked with me well. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
I want to rewind a little bit because, and not to harp too much on your injury, I don't want to do that. But you mentioned, okay, so it's like the athlete in you, like you're fired up, you're super. You're super, I guess, overstimulated, going for like a big pull. OSG is obviously a double, and that's the athlete in you. And you mentioned, you have a lot of clients and you're a coach. Isn't it kind of funny how, you would tell a client not to do that, and then, but then, like, we get overstimulated because I deal with that too. So I guess my question is, like, is it hard, and how do you balance? You're still a very competitive athlete. Like, you did the Chaos Classic. And like qualified for the Chaos Classic, and you're all these shows. I can go on and on and on, but you're also a top level coach. So what's that balancing act like?
I honestly don't feel like it's that difficult. I want to lead by example. I know that there are plenty of people that are capable of never competing in strongman but being wonderful coaches. But that's not me, and no offense to those guys, but it would be hard for me to trust somebody as a coach. If they haven't, paved the way, if they haven't done the things that I wanted to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
And not to say that I need a world's strongest man competitor to do my coaching now, because I've achieved a certain level, and I mean that in the most humble way possible. But there are certain people in the sport that have never competed in strongman that are coaching at a high level, and they're getting results one way or another. A couple people come to mind off the top of my head that I'm not going to name drop, but on the inverse of that, my biggest frustration as a coach is, and I even made a big like Facebook post about this. I was like, hey, don't let, coaches rein your people in. Don't let them make the same mistakes that I did as an athlete. Because I would like to think that if I had a coach in the room, they would have been like, hey, man, you should at least warm your biceps up before you do this. I saw so many videos there at the end of the OSG prep of just god awful deadlifts, and like people, you could tell they were maxing out 3 and 4 days in a row on their deadlift. Like, at what point, like, rein yourself in. Like, if you're worried about that 11, 12 spot, and OSG is a very, incredible opportunity. But if you're having to do that much to get to that 11, 12 spot just for a shot, you may not be ready for it just yet,
Yeah. That just kind of brought a question to mind is, the format of OSG. I was just talking to someone, and I mean, hey, I actually I didn't max a lot. I tried to have it programmed and pick correctly, but I did my overhead on the very last day just to get in, in the top 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You saw a ton of, you can clearly tell. And those OSG events this year were about as hard on your CNS as they can be. I'll be honest. I don't think there was a forgiving event. Like traditionally, if you look back at a lot of online qualifiers, at least in the last couple of years, you have that one event that's like, yeah, it sucks. A sandbag over shoulder or something like that, or a carry, but your body can actually recover from it, right? Like pretty quickly. You're looking this year, a 2-rep max deadlift, about as hard as it can, rule of thumb, like if like the old West Side books say, like 21 days it can take to recover from a max ever deadlift. And not only do you have that, you have a second max ever deadlift essentially with the farmer's hold, and then a 1-rep max overhead. But my question for you is, do you think the format for a OSG, like the online qualifier, could change to be more proactive? The reason I bring that up is because like Anthony Furman, back when he was in charge of Clash, he did the thing where it was 1 a week.
Yeah, I think I think that's the way to go moving forward. Chaos did something similar, where, it's 3 or 4 events, because this year didn't really favor, non-static strongman. Like, I mean, if you had a good grip, you were going to be fine. Yeah,
but not to cut you off, but did it get the best athletes this year? Like, I look at it, and I'm fortunate I got in. But I prefer moving events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, at OSG this year, it's a lot of moving. And
I think that potentially, I don't think that it could have, got the best athletes to compete at OSG. But it got the best in that format. And if that's the format you have to go through to compete at that level, then get stronger. I hate to say that so coarsely, because one of my favorite strongman competitors to watch compete against is Josh Isley. Josh is an overhead away from a world championship, and he'll tell you that too. Like, I love Josh. But he's picked and carried a 500+ pound Houston stone. He competes at 105. And he can move and run and do all this crazy stuff that we couldn't be on opposite ends of the pole. You know what I mean? You let me still and pick something up, and we're going to be all right. I don't move very fast because he's, my stride or whatever it is. But on one hand, I think that they could have done it a little bit differently. But on the other hand, it's world's strongest man in a lot of these weight classes. So if you don't have if you're missing a tool, then you need to fix that tool before you try to come back.
Yeah,
and I don't mean to be an asshole, but
no, it's the truth. I made a point that the best athletes, I think, are still going to find a way there, whether it's online qualifier, whether it's regional invitation. I do still firmly believe that. Obviously, every year there's people missing, injuries, family stuff. It's life, But I do still think the best pool of athletes. Excuse me. I want to go back to the Chaos Classic because you mentioned it, and Luke did 5 events. Right?
I think it was, for the qualifier. For the
online qualifier?
Yes, correct.
And I did talk to him about it briefly, but like, I'm sure that sucked for him. But I thought that was really cool and groundbreaking in strongman to do that. And if you actually look at his online qualifier events, it catered it to kind of some of the events he did at the show. So he knew what events he was going to run, and he got the best athletes, and even for those events. So I thought
he wanted to be representative, and I think he knocked it out of the park. I've competed at the highest levels all across the United States, and even in India before, and it is one of the best well-ran contests that I've ever been a part of. I would put it up there with Clash, like all kind of on the same level. Like it was incredible.
I think it's cool how much opportunity there is in strongman. I think people like Luke taking the initiative and raising the bar, I think helps the sport so much more than people realize, because promoters, whether it's at Nationals, the Arnold, USS, OSG, the people can't get stagnant and get comfortable, or someone like Luke's show is going to come in and take over solely. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
It's really cool to see how much opportunity there is. I think Kristen Matthews made a point. I forget what her Instagram name is. Something Panda, right? Panda. And she's a good follow. But like, she posted about the ASM stuff, that new weight classes, like how many opportunities there are. So I think that's cool. Well,
that's like, I'm still good friends with Anthony Furman, and we talked a lot as he was kind of building Clash out. And he was frustrated about a couple things that some of the other organizations were doing. This has been a couple years, and I was like, well, man, this is your fault. And he was like, how is it my fault that they're doing this? I think it was when USS announced that they were doing pro contracts and stuff like that. And I said, well, you forced everybody else to bring their game up. And I was like, this is a symptom of that. I was like, so you're going to have competition now, and that's great. I said, you wanted this for athletes by athletes, like the old FUBU kind of adage. Yeah. I was like, actually, I may have misquoted that. That is actually USS's for athletes by athletes.
I was going to say that's USS. Yeah, that's USS.
My bad, Willie. Like Willie, so my bad. He said Furman said something similar though.
Yeah, it was anyway. Athletes first.
Man, that's funny. What a snafu there. But anyway. So I was like, look, man, this is better for all of us, and Christine posting that about ASM. I love that idea. You're never going to hear me complain about more opportunities for me and my athletes to showcase their abilities. However, all right, I love Dion, I love Willie, I love Lynn. I have nothing bad to say about them because they're the ones that are presenting these opportunities. But it just seems kind of like half-cocked. Like, why would you announce this a few weeks out?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm involved in Strongman Corporation on a lower level. I'm a state chair for Pennsylvania, and I run shows. But I've said it on here since it's been announced. The 200, and I got invited to 200 ASM. I can't go, but it makes no sense to me. It makes zero sense. There's no prize money, and whatever.
I think that they're going to end up. One of my clients, Tyler Mingus, so be on the lookout for him.
Okay.
Mingus messaged me yesterday, and I don't quote me here, but I'm pretty sure he said that they were going to do prize money for the podium. Now, I don't know that that's been an announced thing. They have to though. They have to. If it's going to be a pro level show, they have to. Well, even if it's like, hey, here's $500. Thanks for showing up.
Right. I mean, honestly, and when you're giving out 25,000 to the open men, it does look a little bit weird that like, hey, we don't have any money.
Yeah.
And I get it.
And it's going to be the WNBA argument. They're like, well, what do you generate? Okay, well, give us an opportunity to showcase ourselves. Yeah. And I'll show you what we can generate. I was talking to, Christine and Jacob McBride about this the other day. Before my injury, I'd kind of heard murmurings about this 90 kilo ASM. And to be clear, I'm like 0% offended or bothered or anything, especially with me being injured now. But would that not have been the perfect opportunity for them to reach out to me and because I'm the only 105 pro that is active, that is in cutting range to 90 kilos.
I'm surprised that you didn't get invited.
Well, I think I didn't because of the injury. I'm not mad about that. Yeah. That doesn't bother me. And it doesn't even bother me that they didn't use this as an idea. But from a marketing standpoint, why wouldn't have they emailed me and been like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Do you want to kind of, I don't know, not be the face, but you're already an established pro. You've already done this. You've already done that. Come help us build this 90 kilo class and bring your friends with you. Like, would that not have made like a lot of business sense? And I'm not saying I'm God's gift to strongman by any stretch.
Right. No, but it makes sense. And, it is something. Wheels are moving. It's something that might just be overlooked. And James may listen to this or hear this and be like, oh yeah, that would have made a lot of sense. And he can learn, and
to be clear, there's a lot of people in the sport that don't like James, but I like James. Like we've never had a problem. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
James is no, you're good. James has always been great to me in the limited interaction. And I think it's cool. And I don't want it to ever come across like I'm being negative, like and bashing stuff because like we were saying, but okay, here's my question for you. And I want to go back to the WNBA comparison because I absolutely hate that. I understand what you're saying. I understand your side, but I'll just say it right now. There's no NBA and WNBA have data. Like NBA is like, yeah, we have 12 million people watching the NBA finals and 200,000 people. I'm just using random numbers, watch the WNBA finals and they lose money. They have financial. Strongman doesn't have that. And I would be interested to see like ADL or like a streaming company actually make their numbers public. Like, and like Luke Davies, I would like to see like if he ran an open show versus a 200, are the numbers that crazy different? Because I feel like it's just something that's been reiterated for so long. Like people only want to watch heavyweights, but I will tell you, just from running some like free live streams and stuff and commentating, people are super interested in the weight class stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that even people are interested in watching the heavyweights. They're interested in watching the people that are promoted. So if the only people they're promoting are,
Right.
And I love Bobby Thompson, I love Trey Mitchell, I like all these guys. That's great that they're getting their promotion, but there's enough pie for them to promote these other weight classes. You know what my favorite weight class of any to watch is? The 64 kilo women. They're incredible.
And that's not funny? Just because everyone says that. Sorry to cut you off. That's actually hilarious because, well, my wife competes at that. She's pregnant now, but she's done 3 shows and done that, and it is an incredible class.
Yeah,
and I like
it that they do is wonderful. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased because Panda's my client or whatever. But man, they
like I even remember this past year at Nationals in Erie at Strongman Corp Nationals, their farmers. So the farmers carry was a pretty intense carry. It was 40 feet down, 40 feet back, then go into a heavier farmers, 40 feet down, 40 feet back. Their last farmers was 220 pounds a hand. If you look 2 years ago in this sport at a competitive show, that is a men's like 80 or 90 kg weight a hand.
Yep, you're right.
I've had shows with 10 plus guys in a class, 5 plus guys in a class at a local level, and my farmers was lighter than that.
Mm-hmm. And people didn't finish.
Right.
And you're talking like you have a handful of people that are pulling north of 500 pounds.
Crazy.
At 100. I mean, Christine will pull 500 this year. And in the next 12 months, raw, at that body weight. It's crazy. It's crazy. And why? From a business standpoint, they already are making a ton of money off of us. Yeah. Not to hate their hustle, but it would be easy for them to invest. Hey, showcase this athlete, get some attention garnered to those other shows.
Yeah.
It would be so easy.
Yeah. And one thing I've always said about the weight class, I'm biased. I always say, cause I compete as an 80, I'm biased, but I will say if you are trying to grow, and I put quotations of sport because I have some stuff to say about us even being a legitimate sport yet, because it seems there's times where I feel like we're still so far away that people realize, but if you're trying to bring more and more people in, right? The big dudes that are Bobby Thompson, they're lifting weights. They know what this is. And there's some freaks out there you can bring into the sport still, but how much easier is it for the average person that's at a show or sees it online to see an 80 or a 90 kg guy? Because the average human that's athletic and likes lifting is under 200 pounds or right around that 200 pounds. Same with women. A woman that's 140, 160 pounds, they're like, oh, these girls do it too. It's not just the heavyweights. I think that promoted that. I'm not just saying because I'm biased. I think promoting the lower weight classes helps grow the sport if you look at it from a grand scheme, because you're bringing more, I guess, gen pop people into the sport. Because how many people have you talked to? They're like, oh, I didn't even know that I can do this. I'm 100.
That's how I started.
That's a guy was like, yeah, there's a strongman comp. When I first started, guys like, there's a strongman comp in 3-4 weeks. And I was like, well, those guys are because I only knew this is 2018 or 2017, whatever. And I'm like, I've only known it from watching it on ESPN at Christmas Eve with my parents when I was, 10.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thought that was a great point by you talking about promoting. And, you own a business. I own a business. I understand businesses have to make money. So I don't like shitting on.
You're making money?
No, that's relatable, but a business model has to make sense for them. These federations and stuff. I get that. I really do. I don't want it. I hate when people are like, well, they just do the math. Hey, there were 200 registrations at $200. They made this much money. Well, we know that's not exactly how that works, but promoting,
But here's the deal. And PSL, to credit, Furman for starting this and Tyler Purdue for taking it over. Yeah. They're on the right track because they are promoting merchandise for the athletes. Yeah. So if you want to support your athlete, Chaos did it too, Luke. If you want to support your athlete, in any given circle, you may have 10 or 15 people that want to support you. So now they're wearing your shirt.
Right.
Even though it's small, that's how it starts, right? We're in the infancy phases of what this could potentially look like in 5 years.
Yeah, and that's almost free and that should always be done, because it's like, my mom and dad would buy a shirt, and they want a shirt. So it's like, it's something that's easy to generate revenue. My thing is with PSL, like that model, the only reason I get worried, and they shouldn't have a membership, it's pro strongman, like you shouldn't pay an entry fee, in my opinion, because it's professional strongman. Like professionals don't pay to do something. They're invited. But I just worry about money long term in that type of business model. Like another, I think they'll figure it out. I've talked to Tyler Purdue, and he seems like he really cares. And obviously Anthony cared a lot. And Anthony was a friend of mine and is a friend of mine. And something they did that wall, that sponsorship wall at Clash. I thought that was a cool idea.
Clever.
But long term, to grow it, you need something sustainable that can bring in legitimate money, not just t-shirt money. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Well,
I get worried about that.
It's the base level of merchandise, right? Your 580 barbell. That was the goal when I opened Grade 8 Performance. I wanted people to get so tired of seeing this fucking gorilla face that everybody knew what it was.
Right.
And I started out Grade 8 Performance. Now you won't see a shirt unless it's an old one that has the words on it. Like I'm doing it to where it's just a face. You know what I mean? Yep. Like I want people to know when we walk in, kind of like Westside back in the day, when we walk in and you see a Grade 8, shirt, or, somebody warming up in Grade 8 gear, like, oh, well, shit, this one's going to come correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
And that's what I want.
Been my goal too with our little, I'm wearing it right now too, our little diamond. Like when we sponsor shows, we don't put like 580 barbell on it. We just put like our diamond that says 580. That's been our. So I feel you on that 100%. Going back real quick, the one thing I wanted to mention about the 200 ASM that makes no sense to me. This is the part that doesn't make sense to me. Is what and reason I'm bringing this up is you may have insight on it that I'll be like, oh shit, that makes sense. What is the difference between the winner of 200 nationals at Strongman Corp Nationals, which is on October 21st, versus the winner of ASM 200s, which is on November 4th?
Who decided what to do what show?
But
I mean, no, you're right. But here's my worry here, and it's going to feed in with that. Here's my worry. Let's say we have a 200-pound winner we're obviously going to have a 200-pound winner at Nationals. Yeah. And then, we're going to have a 200-pound ASM. They're probably not going to be the same person because the shows are 3 weeks away from each other?
They're not going to be the same person.
No, they're not going to be the same person. But so also, I'm worried. And even then, a lot of your top 90 kilo guys are prepping for OSG, so they're not doing either of them. So now there's 3 shows that are 5 weeks away from each other, including 4. PSL. Yeah.
4. PSL's 3 weeks before.
Yeah. So what, could they not have started in an email chain and got this together? OSG, and I know Tyler, I've talked to him about it. There's a reason he planned that in September. It was so it wouldn't interfere with the guys doing OSG. He planned that on purpose.
Yeah,
we always know OSGs at the end of the year. It just seems sloppy from Strongman Corporation, and I'm worried about the athletes' credibility being attacked because let's say somebody goes to ASM, they have a great prep, they show out, they're a good athlete. Maybe things didn't pan out for them being able to go at OSG for whatever reason. And they go and they're like, hey, I won the 90 kilo ASM. And you know what everybody that's going to OSG is going to say? Well, are you really the 90 kilo ASM?
Right. And I think that's bullshit to the athlete because
for sure
it's that that's something I've battled. I'm sure you've battled it in the past is your brain always goes to, well, this guy didn't show up. Well, who gives a fuck? I can't control who shows up. And that was something I wish I would have immediately known after Nationals last year. Hey, your accomplishments are your accomplishments. So I think it's unfair to hold the athletes that standard. I just think it's, dude, we have end of September, 90 kg PSL, Nationals, middle of October. ASM 200 beginning of November, and then OSG beginning of December. It's just, and also remember, it goes back to what we're talking about. It's a hobby. How many 90 kgs are going to be able to go from Erie, Pennsylvania to Florida to Charleston, West Virginia, and to the PSL shows in, I believe, Baltimore? Something like that. Yeah. So it just,
see, I don't have any athletes that are doing more than, like, I have Tyler Mingus doing ASM, and then Christine reached out and asked she wasn't necessarily asking to do it. She was like, hey, what do you think about the 64 kilo ASW? And I was like, I don't want you to do it. It's too close to OSG. That's our pie in the sky. That's where we're going. So she was like, that's kind of where my head was at, but I wanted to get your opinion. I have Jacob McBride doing PSL 90s. And
I didn't know you coach him. That's cool.
Yeah. And then he qualified for OSG as well. He ended up like one spot ahead of me on the qualifier. I was, with my first entries held tight until the very end. So it was fun watching me go from like second to third to fourth to fifth to sixth. Because realistically, and I've been arguing about this with my wife and everybody in my life, it feels like, so like, it's too soon. I'm like, well, we're gonna let the doctor decide that. I went to see my ortho day before yesterday, and I was like, listen, doc, I was like, I got this invitation. I was like, it's 14 weeks post-op, 12 weeks from now. I was like, I cut my cast off last week. Look how much range of motion I have. I was like, I've already been doing PT. And I said, let's just give me an opportunity. I was like, I'm not like these other mortals that you deal with on a regular basis. I was like, I'm going to do what I need to do. But if you veto it at the end, then I won't do it. So I've already talked to Lynn about it. And we gave, I gave him a window of whether or not I'd make a definite, decision. So, but I'm not going to push it. I'm not, at this point in my career, I've done, that'd be my 40th contest.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to push it if I don't have to.
Right.
PSL is 6 weeks later, January 20th in Baltimore, and it's another 90 kilo qualifier. So I'll do that if I have to. I have to have. I'm a goal driven person though. Like I have to have something in front of me. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's awesome, is to always have a goal. But I think what you said is like, with like you said, someone asked you if they should do ASW or whatever, and I think being realistic and focusing on one thing at a time. I think if you're like, hey, I'm going to do nationals, I'm going to do PSL, and I'm going to do OSG, I think you're going to get really clouded. And I think instead of having one really good performance, I think you're most likely to have 3 performances. And trust, I get there's freaks out there. There's guys like Ben Donen right now that can do 12 shows a year. Is that sustainable? Probably not.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
It's fun to watch.
Very fun to watch. But is that and okay, so I guess instead of saying is that sustainable, or I guess I should ask the question, are you Ben Donen if you're listening? Probably not, because that's that 0.01.
No, he doesn't speak English. He's not listening.
No shit. I went at him. Actually, we had a controversial episode once where we talked about him, and like the whole country of France was in my DMs threatening to kill me. So it's funny. I was like translating messages.
But and that I want to kind of segue into something that we briefly touched on earlier. Ben knows his body, but Ben is also coached by one of the best coaches in the business. And Tom Hibbert is not. I would like to think Tom Hibbert has his hands on those reins, and he's going to know when to rein him in versus let him eat.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest gripe in strongman and coaching right now, is because so many of these coaches, we're only measured by our successes, which is great. I've had, Nick O'Hare, who Tom Hibbert coaches now, like when he got second at OSG, I've had multiple national title winners. I've had a lot of successful athletes, but what I take more pride in is they are better humans. My people don't typically get injured, ironically. My people are still enjoying training strongmen. How many coaches, and I'm sure several in Pennsylvania, that that they'll hire somebody and then they'll get hurt and they're never training again, or they'll have some catastrophic injury, or they're taking a whole lot of creatine because somebody told them to take a whole lot of creatine, and then they've got to spend the week in the hospital and they're never the same person. This is a hobby. this has hurt me the most because I haven't been able to pick up my 10-month-old the way I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's real. That's like deep.
So this sport's never going to be more important to me than being a dad, and
right.
part of the sport is what, provides for them. So I'm able to make that, distinction, if you will, but it drives me fucking crazy that some of these coaches are setting some of these athletes up for failure. Young people.
Yep.
Like
100%. It's crazy. I really good point on like, just with like our gym members. Like I get so much joy. Like obviously I want to go and I want everyone to win everything and do their best and everything like that. But when people are like, hey, thank you guys for coming to our show. You brought 10 people. You guys were awesome and like super respectful and kind. Like honestly, that is more like gratifying. Like I get more out of that than sometimes a performance. You know what I mean? That's a great because like we always say, like we're trying to put out more and more with our YouTube and our shows and podcasts and everything and stuff we have in the future. My biggest thing is leaving the sport better than when you came into it. And I think if everyone would take that approach, so that's a great point by you, but yeah, got a little bit off topic there. I guess the one last thing I would say.
It makes sense to my head.
No, I'm the same exact way. I have so many questions written down that I want to ask you specifically as well. I guess the last thing I want to say about that is like the 90 kg thing with ASM and nationals is, I guess that since there isn't a pro card system and it's only a couple weeks after, it just, I would think the America's Strongest Man by definition is already the 2023 Strongman Corp national champion. For that. So what?
I think that there will be a pro card eventually. I think I mean I have zero insider information about this. I do not know what they've got going on over there at corporate headquarters or whatever. But I think that is the next step.
Yeah.
Now from where I'm at, I think it's a golden opportunity for Strongman Corporation to not get left in the dust and maybe offer a pro card at 185 pounds or 190 pounds. A lot of these 90 kilo guys could make that cut down, and a lot of those 75 guys could come up. I know they played with a 185 class 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. And it didn't really go well, but we don't have the same exposure. Or we didn't have the same exposure then that we do now. I think that would be like a golden goose,
That's I actually just saw that's a really cool and unique idea. I think that's cool.
Think about how competitive like a 188 class would be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I saw this DJ Krause's trophy, it'd be tailor made for him and Ben Donan, and I could get back down to 188 if I had to. It's stuff like that. It's exciting because then it would shake things up. The people, God, his name escapes me, and I feel really bad about it. Who's the guy that won 175 nationals like 15 years in a row? It wasn't that many, but
Nick Gagnon.
Bingo. Yep, Nick Gagnon.
What's hilarious is Nick Gagnon lives in like a closet. Like he, what I'm saying is he's like very like out of the loop of everything. Like just lives in a basement. But like he came up on the pod last week too, which is super random.
So like, Nick,
even like Andrew Hanus.
I was getting ready to open my mouth to say Andrew Hanus. I competed against him at 80 kilos back in the day.
Yeah,
he's an incredible strongman. I would love to see him feel like a middle
class. He won the first nationals that I ever did. Got to go against him,
and he won the Arnold last year at 200.
90.
Yep, he's an incredible athlete. Big
won the Arnold at 80 in 2021, and then won it at 2022 80, 2023 90.
Yep, Richie Stout.
Stout. It's incredible. That's really cool. Speaking of weight class, I guess like people that are listening, you have a lot of experience in weight classes because you just mentioned your history in the 80s, which you started in, your history in the 90s, which still going on, I guess right now, and you're a pro strongman at 105 and have made the Clash. Like I remember the first Clash year when you got in by like
the fan vote.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah.
So like what's it been like, I guess, in like, do you think you benefit? I saw CJ Pierce make a really interesting post. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Without getting too far off topic and trying to get my question across, but CJ Pierce said he thinks in strongman people limit themselves to one class too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it limits growth. And when I say growth, your strength growth. And I think that's something that really, when I read CJ's post about that, I think it really resonated with me because I've always been an 80 and I am pretty lucky. My body naturally sits around pretty light for my class for a water cut. But he said, people hold themselves too close to a class. Like, hey, I have to be an 80. Well, hey, if my overhead press is going to go up 60 pounds by adding 10 pounds of my body weight and I compete for a little bit, like I think you're seeing it with CJ Krause.
Yeah.
He's hitting, he tied for the win in the log at the Chaos Classic.
Yeah, he did.
Like,
tied with me.
Yeah, right. And so do you think I guess long way of getting there, but do you think you've benefited from being like, hey, I've done 80, I can do 90 and I'll freaking go up to 105. Like, have you benefited from that?
So where I'm at with it is I want to go where the competition is. I would rather place 5th at one of the most stacked competition like Clash my first year. I would rather be fucking 5th than win some show that doesn't mean anything. So I will always go where the opportunity is. So I started out, my normal weight class was 90 kilos. I started at 90. Now, for whatever reason, I got this idea in my head that I don't know if it was like some post or somebody said something about it, but I got in my head that they were going to make a lightweight pro card back in 2018. I just thought nobody came out and said it. I just, for whatever reason, I felt like it was going to happen. So I cut to 80 kilos because I thought there was going to be an opportunity there. But then I also got my ass kicked at 80 kilos because 80 kilo Tyler Young isn't the same as the rest of them. You know what I mean? So I came back up to 90. And then I was like, they're never going to make a pro card here at 90. I want to compete at ASM. I helped out with Davey McCann ran ASM one year in Louisville. I believe it was 2019. Terry Rady won that year, best I remember. Mm-hmm. And I was there and I was helping them. And I was like, I belong here with these guys. Like, I'm strong enough now. Like I can do this. And I was talking to Luke. Man, I'm so terrible with names.
No, it's good.
Luke Meredith lives in Evansville, Indiana. I've been a pro for a long time. I was talking to him there at that show, and he was like, we were doing the log, and people started falling out at like 320, and I'd already hit a 360 a few weeks earlier training with Luke. Wow. And he was like, why don't you just hop in and show him how to hit a 360 real quick? And I was like, man, I belong here. And he was like, no, you really do. And I was like, okay, that decides it. I'm going to 105. So I decided to make that jump. And then, first nationals I did at 105, I got 19th. I did well, like, if we could have like an outlier where we remove our worst event and then issue the points, that'd be better. Hoosfell Stone and Tyler Young do not do very well together. So shit the bed pretty bad on Hoosfell Stone, ended up 19th overall. But Clash was, 6 months later, came in 5th at Clash. Then that fall is when I got my pro card. My math might be a little off, but generally so yeah, man, I just want to go where the competition is. And I was happy being at 105. I was qualified for Clash this year. My body weight was down a little bit for the Big Show Clash. But then Luke mentioned that he was going to do Chaos and he was going to invite the best of the best to put that show together. And I emailed him and I was like, hey, what's the closest airport to Lithium Santa Anne's? And he said, why, are you coming to 90? And I said, potentially. And he sent me an invite back, and I was like, guess I'm going to 90. I pulled out Clash and I put all my eggs in that basket. That was what I needed next to be competitive. You know what I mean? And I'll always do that. If I can't imagine winning multiple national titles at a weight class and not pumping myself up. That's not a stab at anybody.
No,
nothing but respect for those guys. But if I want a title, at 198, I'm done at 198. I'm gonna go back to 20 or 105 or 220 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, so.
Yeah. So with all your moving around and your longevity in the sport, because you mentioned 39 well, your next show will be your 40th show. And that's a hell of accomplishment. And that shows you've been in the sport for a long time. I guess what's your secret? And what would be your advice for people, that are just getting into the sport, or like how to stay in it for a long time? Because it is a sport. It's the same as powerlifting. Is you see so many people shoot and then where'd they go?
You want longevity in the sport? Don't miss the forest for the trees. Enjoy the process as you go. Don't forget why you started doing strongman. Everybody gets so fucking stressed out about trying to do these shows and qualifying for nationals and OSG and all this other shit. They're so stressed out and they'll spend every fucking penny in their bank account going to all these shows. I started in a parking lot, bro. Like, that's what was fun. I couldn't wait for Strongman Saturdays because I got to go flip these dirty ass tires for 2 hours, even though it was terrible, like training. Like,
yeah.
That's what started it. That's why I built this, is so we would have a spot. My goal of this gym, I work a full-time job. I work security at a local hospital. My only goal for the income here at the gym is to keep the lights on here at the gym. Anything excess, I buy something new. I'm like the worst. I'm the worst business owner ever.
I'm the worst business. I've never taken $1 from our gym. I work a full-time job too. I work in safety, ironically. So yeah, I'm the exact same way. I just remember, it's so funny. Like what you're saying is resonating with me so much because I still do get those chills, like, and so excited to go to Strongman Saturday every week, that we can go and go train with my training partners throughout the week. And like, I just remember those, like when we used to train in a garage, going and flipping the tire. We had like a tire, a Husafel, and a yoke. So that's what we got good at, and like 2 stones. And maybe the training wasn't perfect or optimal, but like we did get something from that mentally, and we all love to do it. So
exactly.
And that really resonated with me, is continuing to love the sport.
And you may have heard me on other podcasts, or I've been kind of in a weird spot for probably a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, even considering like retiring, stepping away from the sport, minus coaching. But I feel like when I compete, which is only 2 or 3 times a year at best, for that 5 or 6 minutes that I'm out there, that's the most me I can be. Like when I have to go to work, like I have to show a reserved version of me. When I'm, at home, I'm a different version, like not wearing different faces, if you will, but untethered, rage and aggression and, just untethered me for that 5 minutes or that 6 minutes or however long I'm out there at a contest. So I've been really kind of on the fence of it, if the juice is worth the squeeze, because, I have a 6-year-old and I have a 10-month-old and they're going to start doing their own sports things. And, I'm 34 actually today.
Wow.
So yeah,
nice.
That's why I had to have that deadlift this morning, man. I needed it.
Nice, dude. Happy birthday. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Oh, of course, man. But I've done my stuff, so I may dial mine back a little bit, but I can't be done. This like changed it. Like once I couldn't do it anymore, I was like, wait a fucking minute here. And I've been the most giddy over a PR that I remember being since probably that 407 stone that I've got pinned on my Instagram. I picked up some 12-pound dumbbells yesterday at work without my arm brace on and did some shoulder raises. And I was fucking terrified when I picked them up. And I was like, is it going to hold? But I was like, oh no, we can do this. Like I was so excited. You know what I mean? But we all it's been a while since I've got butterflies over a lift. You know what I mean? Like It's just,
it makes when you can't do it, it makes you realize how much you love it. And when you get that feeling, it just resonates with you. Even for people listening that like a small back strain, like I had to miss you. I was going to do USS Nationals this year and I suffered like just a strain where I had to like kind of really dial back training for 3-4 weeks where I couldn't go. And like that little time where like you're just doing active recovery, rehab and stuff, it makes you realize like, man, it makes you so much more thankful when you are healthy and you can do stuff.
Right.
So that's a great point by you. And for people the people that don't know you, the few that are listening, you're a shorter athlete. you're kind of notorious for being like the smallest, better, like height wise. Okay. So how tall are you? Like 5'5"?
5'6".
5'6".
Yeah.
So height being short can obviously be a huge disadvantage in strongman, with loading events, but you can make it a strength being shorter, which you've done with other events. So, what have you done to offset that? Because it's like you compete at 105 against guys that are well over 6 feet and and stuff like that. So
I'm just stubborn, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like like I'm fine with somebody beating me because they're stronger than me or faster than me, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna lose just because I'm short.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna figure something out. And the second year that I did Clash, we had that loading race and we got there and they had moved the platform up. It was like a 54-inch load or something like that. It was like a block, an anvil, fire hydrant. And I was like, I was like, well, I guess I'm shouldering all of this stuff. I was like, that's the only way I'm going to be able to load it. And I didn't train to shoulder it.
Right.
Like I just showed up and I was like, all right, cool. And that was just the way it is. You know what I mean? So it drives me crazy in the sport. People will let anything stand in their way of scratching the surface of greatness. Like, and I'm not like, that's not me being braggadocious. I'm not saying I'm fucking great or anything, but like you'll see it and it drives me crazy. Like there's even like top level athletes. I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but like leading up to a big show, they're like, well, this is the worst prep that I've ever had. My dog died. My wife left. My car broke down. My back hurts. I've trained once in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go out. But then if they do well, they're like, despite all of this adversity, I did well. And if they do bad, they're like, well, it's exactly how I expected.
Well, they're people that do that are mentally already trying to create a justifiable excuse in their mind. You know what I mean?
It reminds me of Mike Tyson. This is a weird analogy, but it's going to make sense. Mike Tyson didn't bite Evander Holyfield because he was mad. Like really, he bit him so he had a way out.
Yeah,
that was his way out.
Well,
Holyfield even talks about that.
Yeah, another combat sports reference that I was just watching, like a little YouTube documentary. John Jones, greatest, best MMA fighter probably ever. Never truthfully lost a fight. He got DQ'd once. He said that he had a lot of drug problems, and he said the week before a fight he would go on a super big bender, go do crack, coke, everything, because he wanted to always know, even if he lost, he had an excuse. And he obviously has stopped doing that since. But it's people already mapping out. It's sad to see because, dude, it's hilarious. Like your paraphrasing of like people complaining and making those excuses is like all too true because you see it.
Yeah, it's so like it just blows my mind. And then these same people, maybe they're prepping for a pro show and they're saying this like, bro, a lot of people want to tune in and watch you now. Like you want exposure, you want attention, you want sponsorship, you want money, you want all this other shit. Like you got to get your shit together. You think I don't have terrible, like I do not listen, man, I'm not an excuse guy. That's never going to be me. My only excuse is if I would have been stronger, then that shit wouldn't have mattered anyway. Dude, I've had like some of the worst bouts of, depression and being hurt and being bumped and bruised and all this shit going on, sick kids, newborns. Like, none of that shit matters. We all have a life. We all have life that is impacting our training. Life dictates training, not the other way around. So you don't get extra brownie points for having a tough life. Come in, show up, pick up the weight or don't. Like, it's not. Yeah. 100%. It's not rocket surgery.
Yeah. And it's like, I get it completely. On the topic of coaching, so I guess I have a couple of questions as coaching before we close out. But do you have any influences like as a coach, people that you've learned from, or continue to learn from, or methodologies you've learned from? Obviously a lot of people have taken from Westside, even though they weren't a strongman gym, or people have learned from, I'm trying to think, so many different people, Olympic lifting people.
I just kind of, so I have a system, right? And I feel like I kind of stumbled into that system. So there's no real coach that, and I'll send you a rough outline when we get off when we get off the call, so you kind of know for context. But honestly, I just kind of stumbled into it from like trial and error. It doesn't really follow. I mean, it's not conjugate, it's not cube, it's not any of that. I mean, I guess I don't know. It's not any of that shit. But coaches that I look to, Andrew Triana is an incredibly like underrated coach in the sport. Like he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot from him when he coached me. But I needed somebody like drastically different. Like he does a lot of unique things, like meditate at this megahertz for 45 minutes before you lift, like strange things. But fuck, they work. Like good on him. I'm just too stressed out all the time for all that. Like I can't but I needed somebody different. Me and Camby do things drastically different. Like the main thing being he hits his world record lifts and I miss them. But that's that's an argument for another day. But that's why I handled him to handle my log prep. You know what I mean? Like I need people different than me sometimes. So there are a lot of coaches, Perry Rady's an incredible coach, especially now that he's not arguing politics on the internet all the time.
I had Terry on a few weeks ago, and he is just incredibly
he's so smart. He's so smart, so I've got nothing bad, people have their things, he's a good coach. There are plenty of other people that I look to in the sport. The Pernices, Anthony Pernice and Emily Pernice. I did a little bit of deadlift work with them. Sean Schumacher's an incredible deadlift coach.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm missing some good. Josh Colon is doing some good stuff right now with the rehab stuff.
Yeah, he seems like he's he's like a doctor, right? I mean, he's he's actually really smart.
We argue a lot. Like I tell him he's too smart for his own good. I tell him, what was that? I told him one day, I said, you're the theory of strength and I'm the application. You need to quit just fucking around and just pick up the fucking weight or something like that. And he got all in his feelings, but I was just terrorizing him. I was just playing.
Yeah.
But nothing but respect.
I think it's a double-edged sword, and I think you made some really good points. Is like, you said you kind of stumbled upon your methodology, your style of programming, probably from a lot of trial and error, right? And stuff that works for you. I think something I see and hear a lot is people are too stubborn. I don't want to say stubborn. They're too dead set on their ways. Like, I have to do just conjugate. I have to do just linear periodization, and with no real world application to themselves. And then it's like, well, I think a lot of the real successful athletes and coaches have tried it, learned what works for their body, and then made adjustments, right? Because I don't think it's a cookie cutter program. And then another thing you said that I thought was really interesting is bringing in a different point of view, because when you try to coach yourself, you're like, hey, you may know in the back of your mind, hey, I need to do this and this, but you're not putting it to yourself for whatever reason, psychologically.
Right. And I'm not going to cut you off, but you said something important that I want to speak on. A good coach-athlete relationship has to be synergistic. So, for example, Camby was doing me for that, was prepping me for that, but through a portion of the prep, we were doing a whole lot of barbell work, like thrusters and stuff like that. I have awful front rack mobility because I've never been an Olympic weightlifter, and I just don't. It's not something that I prioritize because I haven't needed it. So I was coming in and I was having to do like 30 or 45 minutes of prep work just to get the bar to my chest. And so I called him one day. I was like, look, man, I love you. I was like, I'm not questioning your methods. If you want me to continue to do this, then I will. I said, however, I don't have time for this. We're 6 weeks out. I feel like, the coach in me, I feel like this time could be better spent doing something else.
Right.
I said, I feel like this is off-season stuff that we could do. I know that this worked for you, but you already had the mobility. You already had this, and it built your log. It didn't take away from it, because I was having to do thrusters, and like the top thruster set I hit that day was like 205 or something terrible. Like
when you're pressing,
it's 100 pounds less than my strict press on a barbell. You know what I mean? Like, and he was like, no, you're right. You're a different athlete. He was like, let's make some changes. Yeah. But I brought that to him respectfully. I was like, hey, here's something that I think that we can. I was like, but at the end of the day, I hired you and I trust you and I will continue to do that. So athletes, speak up. Even mine, if you're listening, if you think you're being mishandled, bring it to them appropriately and respectfully. If you only been doing it for a couple of weeks, shut your mouth and do your work.
Right.
But if we're a few weeks in and you're not getting, because my workouts change week to week. My guys never do the same thing. Like I need that, so I feel like my people do. So it changes weekly. Something anyway.
It's amazing points by you that I think people who are coached, which I'm almost probably everyone listening is coached in some form or capacity. Be honest with yourself, but be honest with your coach.
Right.
Like, especially with online coaching, which I'm sure a lot of your coaching, you said, you're in the 50s, right? So is a lot of that online?
Yes, I'd say probably 35 of them are online, maybe 30, because the rest are all in my general area and they can come in and I can put hands on them if I need to.
So, okay, look, you hire me to coach you, right? Besides seeing you on Instagram and stuff, I don't know you. Nick knew you, but he's genuinely trying to put together the best program and methods for you. But you just may not realize, hey, your front rack position sucks. Like, I think that's one thing people struggle with is it's not going to be a magic pill when you have a coach, right? I think the biggest struggle is it takes 6 months to learn a client. When people aren't willing to give that 6 months of, hey, let's learn each other, let's be honest. So,
and it's so funny you mentioned that. I had a client back in the day. I'm not going to call him out by name, but his complaint with me and the reason that he fired me is that I was too needy. He said I was asking for too many videos because his fucking position sucked. And I was trying to fix it. So we lasted 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks or something like that. And I heard him talk about it on another podcast.
Oh, wow.
Not bitching, not but he said, if I don't see results in the first month, I'm going to fire you because I hired you for results. And I just felt that just tickled the shit out of me because I was like, bro, it takes me at least a whole training block to even see what kind of athlete you are. I said, now, if you follow my program, if there's room to clean it up, you're absolutely going to hit PRs. Absolutely. I don't. It was so funny.
That's a month is insane in the grand. I'm preaching the choir with you, but think about how silly a month is in the grand scheme of training.
And if I remember correctly, I got maybe 3 videos during that whole month.
Yeah.
There were several midweek messages of, hey man, have you done any of your workouts this week?
Yeah, you have to, dude, you got to look at yourself and be like, hey, as an athlete, am I doing everything possible to get better during this month? Without even blame. You can throw shit at a wall and it can stick for a programming for a month or,
Sure.
That's, and I'm assuming it's a decently high level athlete. If you're saying they were on a podcast, no, just a random kid. Okay. But yeah, that's insane. It goes, I've probably said it. We've had 143 episodes. I probably said it in 80% of the episodes, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it is so cliche. It's so repeated, but that's the best advice quickly I can give to a new athlete is, every strength athlete has those beginner gains, whether it's powerlifting, strongman, whatever, Olympic lifting. It's once you get over that quick little rise, you weather that storm for years and years and years, where you're willing to work for 1 year for a 5-pound PR on a lift.
Yeah, dude, that's it, man. People are so spoiled. I was stuck. My deadlift was stuck at 660 for 3 years. 3 years before Sean Schumacher planted a seed in my brain and said scoop. And I came in the next deadlift session. I pulled a 40-pound PR.
Yep.
My first time over.
It's funny. Mine was stuck at 645 for 4 years, 3 years. And I pulled, and then I broke it by 5 pounds. And it's that 5 pounds is such, it's the best feeling in the world because you knew you worked for it. And that's what I've always loved about strength sports is that I think it's better than team sports because there's no one to blame. And it's, in football, you can look at it and be like, hey, well, are these guys working out as hard as me? Are these guys blocking? Are they doing their job? Whatever. Strongman, it's like, hey, man, if I don't hit this log, nobody's fault. It's mine. So, yeah, that's really cool, man.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Hey, man, I've enjoyed
happy birthday. Even when
Hey,
this will come out on Sunday. So everyone wish Tyler a happy belated birthday. And your Instagram name and everything will be on here. Make sure you guys are following Grade 8 Performance. If you're interested in coaching, reach out to Tyler, follow his gym, follow everything those guys are doing because it's awesome. And,
if you're interested in coaching, make sure you message my personal account because I'm awful at checking the gym account. So yeah, really bad about that.
Yeah. So we'll have your Instagram name up here if you guys are watching on YouTube and everything, and check the description for all your stuff. But man, I appreciate it. That was a great conversation and hope to have you on again in the future.
Anytime, brother.
Thanks.
All right, man. Have a good one.